Okay, today's lesson is dealing with customary units of length. It goes along with your book, page 332. Okay, measurement of length is a distance that we are measuring. So we're going to be dealing with 1 foot, also known as FT would be the abbreviation, equals 12 inches, or IN for the abbreviation for inches. A lot of you know this and you remember this, and some of us forget that 12 inches is 1 foot. So that's why we're reviewing it this year. 1 foot is the same as 12 inches. We also know that 1 yard, or YD for yard, is the same as 3 feet. So if 1 yard is the same as 3 feet, how do I change it into inches? Well, I go back up here and I look, say, okay, 12 inches is 1 foot. So for every 1 foot, if I were to measure, here's 1 foot, that would be 12 inches. Here's another foot, that would be 12 inches. There's my third foot, that would be 12 inches. So if I had 3 feet, that's the same thing as timesing 3 feet times 12. So when I do 3 times 12, I get 36 inches. So if I were to measure this out in feet, it would be 3, but in inches, it would be 36. Okay, so that's how we use these numbers to help us with converting from feet, inches, and yards. You can also convert from 1 mile and say it's the same thing as 1,760 yardsticks, the yards. Again, knowing that there's 3 feet in a yard, you can take that number and times it by 3, and you will get 5,280 feet. It's the same as a mile. If I wanted to change that feet into inches, I would then take that 5,280 feet and times it by 12 if I wanted to find out how many inches are in a mile. So it'd be a quite bit larger number. We don't usually have to go from miles to inches. We usually go from miles to yards or into feet. Okay, so the example that they are giving you is they want you to take 14 yards and compare that to 41 feet. There's a bunch of different ways you can do this problem. You can either change them both so that they're both yards, or change them so that they're both feet. If you look in your book, they actually do one way, whereas they convert this yards into feet. So they want to change 14 yards into feet. So how many feet are in 14 yards? So I come back up here and I look at my chart. I know there's 1 yard is the same as 3 feet. And I know my yardstick is much larger than my ruler. So I'm going to need a lot of rulers to equal that yardstick. So I am going to multiply 14 by 3. When I do that, I get 3 times 4, which is 12. 3 times 1 is 3, plus the 1 is 4. So when I convert them into feet, now all I have to do is look. I have 42 feet, which is the same thing as 14 yards, and that's going to be greater than 41 feet. So that's the one way they showed it. The other way they showed it is now, instead of changing them both into feet, they want you to change the 41 into yards. In order to do that, you're still going to use the same conversion up here. 1 yard equals 3 feet. But instead of multiplying, we're actually going to divide. Because we're going from a foot, which is so big, to a huge stick, which is yards. So we're going to use less yardsticks than we would the ruler. So then I go ahead and divide and try to figure out if I have 3 feet, how many times can that fit into 41 to get yardsticks? So 3 goes into 4 once. 1 times 3 is 3. You subtract, bring down the 1. 3 goes into 11 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. You subtract, and you get 2. Now, when we are dealing with measurement, when you get a remainder, remember to write your remainder as a fraction. So remember, we're trying to find out how many 3's go in. So we got 2 left over, so it'd be 13 and 2/3. You want to put your remainder over your divisor. So now if we compare 13 and 2/3 to 14, you still get the same exact answer. 14 yards is greater than 13 2/3 yards. So that's one way. And there isn't a better way to do it. You either change it to all yards or all feet. You get to choose whichever way you like to do that. So that's how you do the comparison ones, like for numbers 6 and 7. So when you're doing number 2, 288 inches, and you have to convert number 2 into yards. So you have to figure out how many yards are in 288 inches. Again, so I come up here and I see my yard. I know it's 3 feet, but I also know that there's 36 inches in a yard. Our number's not going to get larger. Remember that inches is much smaller than yards. So it's going to take less of these sticks if I were to lay them out to equal this one. So I'm going to take 288 and I'm actually going to divide it by 36. So when I take 288 and I divide it by 36, I ask myself, how many times can 36 go into this? And I know it can't go into 2. I know it can't go into 28. So I have to go into 288. And we sit there and we're like, oh, I don't know, I'm stuck. So remember estimating. If I round this up to 40 and I say, okay, if this is 40 and I look at the 4 and I look at the first 2 digits, how many times can 4 go into 28? So I start doing my multiplication. I say, okay, 7 times 4 is 28. So maybe I should try 7. So off to the side, I'm going to take 36 and I'm going to times it by 7. So I'm going to do 7 times 6, which is 42. Then I'm going to do 7 times 3, which is 21, plus 4, which is 25. Okay, so that's pretty close. Let's see if we can get closer. 36 times 8. Okay, so when I do 36 times 8, I'm going to do 8 times 6 is 48. 8 times 3 is 24. 24 plus 4 is 28. So there is what I'm going to use. How many times can 36 go into 288? 8 times. Because 8 times 36 is exactly 288. So my answer is 288 inches is the same thing as 8 yards. Okay, so when you're looking at page 332, and you're doing questions 1 through 7, when you do them, remember to look back at your answer key. We just did number 2 together, so that is something you can copy from this lesson onto your paper. But make sure you look at those answer keys to make sure you're doing it correctly. Hopefully this helps.